Leon Panetta joins us right now, the former defense secretary, former CIA director, former White House chief of staff. You might wonder why I have Leon here. It's not just because he's a fellow Italian, that would be too cliche, but because of all the problems we're seeing in Ukraine right now. And now we've got the State Department telling Americans you might want to get out because Russia could really ramp up attacks on the country. Leon, great to have you. Obviously, they know something, see something, fear something that we might not know. What do you think of that? That's a pretty dire warning.
Well, I'm sure intelligence is trying to keep track of the growing threats from Russia. There are two things that are coming in at play here. One is Independence Day tomorrow, which celebrates 31 years of their independence. And the second is obviously the killing of the daughter of this ultra-nationalist. And the Russians say they're blaming Ukrainian intelligence for having conducted that assassination. Those two things obviously raise concerns that Russia is going to use tomorrow as a target for basically going after Ukraine. And I think it's for that reason that the alerts are going out, not only to our citizens, but President Zelensky is also warning Ukrainians as well that there may be attacks.
You know, this attack on the daughter of this Putin ally, I'm wondering if it is a sign that Vladimir Putin might want to look over his own shoulder. We always hear about coups, sometimes years after the fact, Secretary, and I'm just wondering, this is very different, I grant you. It's nothing like the trying to overthrow Adolf Hitler in the waning year or so of World War II, but should he be concerned that a coup is possible, that someone could take him out?
If I were Vladimir Putin, I'd be very worried about what just happened, and the sense that ultimately, if there are those that are willing to use violence against, the family of an ultra-nationalist, this is an individual that comes very close to the top in Russia. So I would be worried if I were Putin that he might be the target of similar attacks as well. That's a real threat in Moscow.
And it could also galvanize Putin to launch even much stiffer attacks that might get back to what you and I were chatting about in the beginning on Ukraine.
Yeah, you know, I think it was the Ministry of Defense in Ukraine, somebody from there said that the Russians go crazy over dates and symbols. And it's true. The Russians look for particular dates to use it as a vehicle for attacks. So I think tomorrow being Independence Day, I would not be surprised to see the Russians taking action. I hope the Ukrainians aren't simply sitting back and waiting for these attacks. I hope the Ukrainians are also taking steps to go after whatever targets they have to try to show the Russians that they're just not going to sit there and take it from the Russians. Real quickly,
Secretary, we've heard from both the Ukrainians and, for that matter, Russia, that peace talks aren't happening. They're not happening anytime soon. They might not happen ever. Russia's foreign minister was much more abrupt on the subject. So what do you think? How long does this go on?
Neil, we're in a war of attrition at this point. We've gone through several stages. We went through a failed invasion. We went through a failed siege warfare approach of just trying to brutally kill people and break the Ukrainian will. And now we're in this war of attrition. And very frankly, it is certainly a war of attrition. Russia has made some advances, but they're also stalled. And Ukraine is using it to target Russians. So we are in, I think, for a long period of war here that who knows what the end result will be.
Leon Panetta, thank you very much for joining us. The former Defense Secretary, former CIA Director, former White House Chief of Staff, much more. Leon Panetta.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.